Right on the support. Should be able to
All right, good morning. First Friday after daylight savings, it's always a little different, right? Dark coming in. So this week, let's strive to restrain discretion and integrity, especially with the modern climate that we're dealing with today with the COVID-19 virus. You know, there's a lot of rumors, a lot of information out there. Try to figure out what's true, what's not true. So always figure out your source. Use the health and safety department as a resource if you have any questions regarding anything like that. But again, if there is, there is cases now in Chittenden County, so we're going to keep monitoring it closely, like we talked about yesterday at the email that we sent out last night. Ken has more to talk about it today at the safety meeting, some of the things that we're going to be doing moving forward. This week, I had Vermont Gas, Dave Addick, to come and do our kind of annual start to kick off with excavation work and working around utilities. Due to our modern climate, he declined to canceled on me yesterday. So we are going to continue with this. This is a very important topic. So what we're going to do is just talk about our best practices around working near natural gas pipelines, because over the next couple months, we're really going to uptick our dig safe tickets, our exposures to working around other utilities and everything. So it's going to be a nice soft start into the construction season. So natural gas, again, it's one of our most dangerous utilities out there that we really need to put a high level of awareness towards, making sure that we are recognizing or always have emergency conditions in place. And we always just follow our good, safe work procedures that we're going to talk about today. Some quick properties of natural gas. Hopefully this is just a reminder for a lot of people, or everyone that might be new in the last year. Again, natural gas line is colorless and non-toxic. It's 94% methane and 4% ethane. Only through its ability to displace oxygen can it pose an I always struggle with it. Thank you. Asphyxiation hazard. So that's important for confined space work. All right, very important for working in confined space. If there's a gas leak, we need to make sure everybody gets out of the hole, out of a confined space, because what it's doing is displacing the oxygen, and then it could create a very life-threatening situation. So those are some of the properties. Kind of continuing with some properties, it's normal, it's colorless. However, Vermont Gas, they add deodorant, which gives that rotten egg smell. So the reason for that is to be able to identify when there is a leak. So you smell that rotten egg, that means there's some type of leak potential, and we want to get on the horn and let them know. The deodorant, the idea is you can smell it when it's at 20% LEL or 1% of gas in the air is concentrated. So the idea there is to smell it before it gets into that, where it's not in that lower explosive limit where it can potentially ignite. The idea is it's an initial warning sign letting you know that there's a dangerous condition there, and we need to put in the emergency procedures that we're going to talk about before. Just finishing up with the vapor density. This is very important. Natural gas is 30% lighter than air, so it's gonna rise and rise fast. All right. So the idea, and then propane, it's a good one that everybody knows that propane is 1.56, so it's heavier than air. So propane is going to be kind of in our trenching and more in the ground if there is a propane line damage. So some of the factors affecting for gas migration, this is becoming a real hot topic over the last couple of years regarding gas migration. Is the factors affecting the gas is soil type, especially right now when there could be frost in the ground, soil moisture, surface cover, pressure line, the depth of how deep the line is buried, how big the leak of it might be, changing in elevation and slope, or a path of least resistance. So that's why we're going to talk about a little bit more with best practices. If there is a gas leak, or you smell or you have a potential for a gas leak, we want to not cover it or expose it, crimp it, anything that we want to let it go. Because if it's not burning yet, what it is it's flying high into the atmosphere and it's going to be safe, and it's not going to do what we have later in this presentation regarding some of the big explosions that you've seen throughout the news in the last months, but also years. There's been some pretty severe casualties. So remember, the biggest built-in safety factor of natural gas is that it's lighter than air. However, it will vent to the atmosphere someplace. So we want to give it a way to go. So if you damage a pipeline, always call Vermont Gas so we can investigate it and make sure there's no leaks. Again, call 911, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So with the flammable range is the ignition temperature is 1,100 degrees Fahrenheit. Gas will not ignite above it. It means it's too rich to burn, or gas will not ignite below 5%. It means it's too lean to burn. So this is the sweet spot. When we have between 5% gas to 15% gas, it's a mixture of natural gas and the air in this room. If we make that perfect concoction, all it needs is a source, a spark, a match, and then you got those big explosions. So that's where it's really good information to know. So when there is a gas explosion or a gas leak, everyone's like, do I shut the excavator off? Do I not? The best thing is to probably back away. Either leave it running if everything's fine, or do shut it off and then just walk away and make those phone calls. So what do you do if a pipeline and gas is leaking? Move a safe away from the area if you smell or see a leak or hear a leak. You are too close. Form a safe location. Call the fire department, 911. Call gas. Again, this is on the ECI app emergency contact list for utilities. It's 802-863-4511 immediately. Make sure you talk to someone in person when reporting the damage, and do not leave voicemails or messages. Get somebody alerted. Evacuate adjacent areas, and do not allow anyone in the area. Eliminate all sources of ignition. If you expect the gas is entering a building, you must evacuate the building. So again, that's why calling 911 is big, because that's what the fire department love to do. They get there and they just get everybody out of the house. Be proactive. If you have that information, we're digging in the residential area, we hit a service, let's just do our due diligence and try to make the environment as safe as we can for everybody. So if you expect the gas is entering a building, you must evacuate. Do not ring doorbells. That is a potential of a source of ignition. So knock on doors. Do not turn on light switches or phones in the area where gas is present, because again, that could be that ignition if it's in between that 5 and 15%. And then do not allow people to re-enter the building until Vermont Gas and Fire Department says that it is safe for us to kind of get back to work. So just kind of concluding on that, do not cover the leak with dirt. Why? Migration. Remember, we don't want it to go into people's basements. Cover it up. We want it to just flow high into the atmosphere. If the gas begins to burn, unless absolutely necessary, do not attempt to extinguish the fire. What we then have is a big Bunsen burner, or at least it's controlled and it's there, and everybody can just spread out. You know, the optics of it aren't great. It looks dangerous, but at the same time, it's just a big Bunsen burner. So just everybody get away from it. So do not attempt to crimp plastic pipe or any other pipe, because the static electricity can then ignite. I know there's times where crews want to grab it, cinch it down, throw a bunch of duct tape on it. They think they got it fixed, but again, there's that potential of static electricity charge there, and then you got a Bunsen burner on our hands, and it could be a very dangerous situation. So if it happens, let it go. Make the call. Let's get the professionals there to fix it the proper way. Dave wanted me to remind, this happens every year to Vermont Gas hand tools, driving stakes, driving curb pins around distribution, or more services, house services. You know, it happens very frequently where we drive a curb pin through. These are actually more pictures that are on their distribution line. But it can happen. So I always call before we dig. We're going to talk about dig safe in the next couple of weeks more and more. There's some changes that I'm reviewing now regarding some of the new writing that are in the statutes. So here's some kind of lessons learned. You know, here's a line that was damaged that was not appeared leak. The gas company was not notified, and then an explosion occurred a day later. Make sure you always be aware of migration potential. If we come across, Dave said, if we come across a line that we didn't damage but it looks damaged, call them. They want to come out and take a look at it. They want to make sure that the integrity of their services out here are in the best possible condition, and why they're exposed. It's a good time for them to come and fix them. Here's another one that we talked about like last year. Here's a good example of why it's very important that we always verify potholing with anytime we're crossing any gas services through directional drilling or with our excavators. Because here's a perfect example of a potential hazard. They drilled right through, looks like a 2-inch distribution service. So again, if you do strike a gas line, notify. What happened with this one with the explosions that you see on that left slide is no one called 911. They had a leak. No one called 911 at all. An hour later, the explosion occurred because what happened was it was leaking. All right, and then it was leaking, and then it was migrating due to the air temperature, the ground condition. The leak wasn't 100% going into the atmosphere. It was migrating and ended up migrating into the buildings. And then no one called 911. The gas started enriching the buildings, got into the basement, and then it found that right sweet spot between 15 and 5%. And it just needed an ignition source, found it, and then boom. You just see how many condominiums there. It was a very big explosion. Luckily, only one person died, but again, one is too many. And then a lot of people had serious injuries and significant damage, over 55 homes. So it was a very big explosion that made national news. So lessons learned, again, if you expect it or you think there is a leak, definitely a leak, let's get on the horn, let's call 911, and let's call Vermont Gas. So in conclusion, we want to do our due diligence. Again, what color is natural gas when it comes to underground utilities in the pre-marking process? Yellow, all right. So you see yellow on the ground, we got a gas service day, we need to take proper precautions. And then Dave wanted to really hone this one in. What is the first phone number you should dial if you're damaged a gas line and is leaking? 911, perfect. And then what is the second phone number you should dial if you damage the gas line and is leaking? I don't expect you to remember this. Or yeah, exactly, good. 802-863, which is our number here, and then just 4511 is Vermont Gas landline. So they're out there. They're our best locating company. They're really good about their marks. We have a good partnership with them, with the Common Ground Alliance. So knock on wood, we've had some pretty good last couple years not damaging their stuff. But again, we want to make sure that we do our due diligence, planning ahead, knowing how to properly excavate, directional drill around underground gas services and their lines, so we don't have to hopefully put the emergency response plan in place. So, is there any questions regarding our best practices?
Okay. Thanks, Matt. So let's see, for announcements, you can now be considering throughout in the coming weeks, and we'll have some more messaging about it, is that we have the go-to meeting, which is the go-to link here, I believe, and with a number. So you don't have to be here in the meeting. You can go watch it on your smartphone, your tablet, your computer, whatever. So it's a good way. It looks like we have a thinner crowd, which is good, nice and spread out. So then starting for today, we have only live checks. We got both today. Okay, so well, there's not many people here anyway, but the idea would be that we would just take live checks and hand them out, because you don't really need your check stub right away, and we would put all the check stubs in the mail, so there's not a lot of calling names and handing out stuff. So just an extra precaution, plus it's going to make us more efficient. And part of that is this next line here, is that the new foundation software that we use, that everyone puts in all their time and everything, it also processes payroll and does a lot of different things. But we have the ability to send your check stub out to you by email. So it really, reduce a lot of paperwork and handing out things anyway. So there's a lot of efficiencies that we can work on that have the benefit of reducing any problems that might cause the coronavirus or any type of virus spread. And then also look for details. Probably next week or so, we'll start to get information, collect your information on how to send the stuff to you. And then PT 360 will be here on today, 13th, and that's 3 to 4 p.m. So if there are openings available.
There are openings available. If we don't have one by 8 or 9 o'clock, we're gonna cancel.
Yeah. So
if
you're looking to do it, get right on it. Auto insurance cards are in. We talked about that last week. So if you don't have one, make sure you go track one down. And then just have a little update section of the email for the time being. A couple links here. helpvermont.gov is a good one, especially more localized, and gives us a more update on what the problems or what the concerns around here. And also the CDC is obviously the big U.S. government, federal government one. So just a few things. We want to kind of use the sanitizers, clean our equipment, clean anything that people touch a lot. Stay home if you're sick. Do the social distancing, spread out a little bit. And then I forgot to cover your mouth when you cough, all that sort of thing. But hopefully that means if you're sick, you're staying home anyway. And then we'll be watching for different practices and adjust as necessary. And then for the project this week, we're profiling again the Middlebury Tunnel project. We're talking about the track work portion this week, and we're continuing and preparing for the 10-week shutdown, remember, for all rail traffic. And we talked about the driving of the sheet pile last week, and the overall goal is to put in these precast sections of tunnel and U-shaped pieces. The railroad crew has been mass producing track panels. So there's over 3,500 feet of track that gets removed and reset, and it means the existing rail ties and other track material, OTM, will be removed immediately upon the start of the shutdown. And we decided that building panels with the old temporary rail with new ties would be the best way to reset track. So when it comes time to putting it all back together, we drop all these panels in and attach them. And that will help make it sufficient. So for this winter, we've been constructing over 91 sections of 39-foot track panels. And the railroad crew has settled into a nice rhythm of 8 to 10 panels a day they've had, and then just 4 to 5 guys. So really pretty efficient. And they're stockpiled both in north and south location, so that when we get to put everything back together, we can work from both sides. And then in addition to the track and support of excavation and scope of work, and we're also responsible for mass excavation in the north end of the tunnel, installation of 6,000 tons of ballast stone and under drain. And next week, we're going to talk about some of the utility crossings that we did last fall. So there we go. There's that picture we had from last week. The rail goes right through town, crosses Main Street, crosses Merchants Row, continues on all the way up to the pretty much the Cross Street Bridge and back down to Exchange Street, roughly, right? That crosses over. And we got a couple pictures here putting together panels, new ties, used rail, used OTM, and pretty good cold weather work as far as cold weather work goes. And then it's just an old picture of some track work we were doing on the silent grade crossings back in like 2001 or something like that. I'm not sure which street this is on, but it's throughout from, yeah, well, it's Charlotte northward. I'm gonna say Burlington southward, but from Burlington to Charlotte, all the crossings on the Vermont Railway are still silent, so that there's no train whistle, which is typically required unless you have these special grade crossings. But we're doing the track portion there.
Highly residential there, right?
Yeah, it was because of the residential impact, so. Okay. Jeff, want to hit the light for me there?